Well, here we are again, folks. I don't know exactly if in one of these other excerpts I had covered the threefold thing that John talked about in, for instance, in studying the Word of God, or studying the story of the seven churches. There are many people who study the Bible ardently. There's a difference between a man that sits every morning. He gets up very early, reads his Bible, a couple of chapters, or he's going to read it through in a year. And he reads his Bible through, and at the end of the year you ask him, what specific was it that stuck out to you? And he can't recall. There's a problem with that, a very big problem with that. He is only reading, and only reading is not receiving. If you want to read to receive, you must read with adoration. You must read with more than just reading response. I like that. Sometimes I'll tell my boys, take a book of Jude, read it through 5 days. Don't concentrate on it. Don't do anything. Just read it through 5 days in a row, every day for 5 days. Take 7 minutes for the average person to read through the book of Jude. And 7 minutes, 25 verses. Read through it for 5 days, constant, steady, or a week. And then go back and start studying it. Read the first verse. Look at it. The first verse. Look at it when you read the first verse. It's just like the first verse of Revelation. What's it say? The revelation of Jesus Christ. Come on. Man, you can sit right there now if you want to. And you can study for a week. The revelation of Jesus Christ. You can start back through the Bible. You can go back to Genesis 1:1, to Genesis 1, verse 15. You can go back to Genesis 3:15, excuse me. You can go back to the beginning. You can go to Proverbs 1 and 8 and kick off right there with a good Bible and get your references and start following it through. By the end of the week, you will have exhausted yourself. And if you're writing down what you're studying, you have a book now as thick as this one right here, full of just that one subject. That one subject. You know the Bible said if everything that Jesus did and said was written down, there would not be enough books to contain what he said and did. And in 3 years, let alone he was at 30 years, but in 3 years. Now the vision of the glorified Lord was this. It was followed by a presentation now of the letter to the churches. All right, he had seen, remember, and heard and talked and turned and talked with Jesus. And now Jesus is saying, pen this letter down. Now he's beginning to pen down the book of Revelations. Now the book of Revelations has 303 verses in it that are directly from the Old Testament. Now, the guys that came over to see John, they came over to Isle of Patmos, and they're looking at John and they're saying, John, what you doing? Oh, John says, I'm writing a book. And they say, you are? Let us read it. So they pick it up. And they start reading it. And they say, hey, John's gone mad. John has gone mad. He's mad now. He's beside himself. He don't know what he's writing. He's crazy. And so they thought John had lost his mind. But John knew that the glorified Lord was the one that he was talking about. And he knew that when God told him something, God was looking at the churches, the 7 churches. Jesus was looking at the 7 churches from the end, from the last one, the Laodicean church at the end, the great falling away. Jesus was looking down there at that and coming back and saying all the way up now to the churches that have been and those churches that were. Now he said, if you want to look at it this way, there's going to be a judgment of the church that is when Jesus comes. There's going to be a judgment of the church that is. And there's going to be a judgment of the church that was, and a judgment of the churches that were before, the ages of the churches that were before. So there's going to be 3 separate things. You can study the letter to the churches in 3 different ways. The aspects of the churches in 3 different ways. The church at Smyrna, he talked about it. He said what their problem was. He said, because of this or because of that, you have need. And then he says to the other church, and this is talking about now a period of time. a period of time. Now you can go back and talk to the very personal church. The very personal church. You and I today could relate this to denominations. You could say he came to the Baptist church and say to the Baptist church, I feel like you guys could, and you did, run well for a while, but what happened? You let the world get in the church, and when the world got in the church, things began to go away. Now there are some in there that are real, and those some that are real are mine, and they are going to come to heaven with me, but the rest of you sitting here I call hypocrites. You have an appointed place in hell, and that's where your place is appointed. If you are not serving me, if you're not bearing fruit, you are a vine that's dead. You are a branch off the vine that is dead. You've come off, you look good, and somebody told me the other day they cut, Brother Ralph, he said he cut a 14-foot sucker off of his grapevine. It's called a sucker. It won't bear grapes. It won't do anything. It's beautiful, but it's a sucker. It goes out and it digs itself into the ground, and then it sucks up from both ends. It takes out of the vine and it takes out of the ground, and it gets bigger, and it's no good. It's no good for nothing. It will cause all the grapes on the vine to be little and be malnourished, because it is taking the nourishment. And do you know that we have today in the church people that come, they sit in a padded pew, listen to me, sit in a padded pew, suck up the air conditioner, even would complain it's not cool enough, and never put a dime in the offering plate. And when you talk to them about it, they say all the church wants is money. Well, let's see what they do when they get a $1,600 light bill and have to pay it. Well, I think that they need to see. And another thing is, that person is absolutely, positively, 100% not blessed. There is no blessing in the person's life who does not tithe. If they don't tithe, they are not under the blessings of God, because they're breaking the third thing that God told them to do. First thing he said do, listen to me and ask me to forgive you if your sin come into your heart. Second thing, find a local church, get in it, get baptized. That's be buried with him in baptism and raised to walk in newness of life in the water. Be completely submerged and raised. And the third thing, and this one here, if you break it, you will never go another inch with God. And that is tithing. 10%, 10 pennies of every dollar you take in belongs to Jesus, belongs to God. You know what's funny? You know what's really funny? Is that God can take 10% of a person's money and build a church with it, and the man can take 90% and have havoc in his life because he can't control his life with 90%. Wow. I know people that give 90% and control their life with 10% because they follow God. Now, I have a situation in my life. My wife and I have tithed. We have tithed. We have been the poorest human beings on earth. It was one year that we made $13,500 back in the 73, I think it was. We made $13,500, and we filed that, and the government rejected our filing and said you couldn't live on it. Well, what the government didn't know is that I had 5 children at that time in Christian school, and was paying the bill out of that $13,500. And not only that, I was tithing my 10%. Not only that, I was supporting a missionary. Hey, and that was all on what the government said we couldn't live on. I got news for the government. If you give your tithes and your offerings and you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to see the results of it in your life. God met the need. Did my wife and I do things outside of the filing money? Yes, we did. I sat on the hood of the car in the morning going to school, coming back. We'd take the kids to school. Coming back, I'd sit on the hood and pick up soda bottles. She'd stop. I'd say, hey, and there'd be one, I'd get it. And there'd be another one, I'd get it. And there'd be another one, I'd get it. We stopped at the store, and I'd take the bottles into the man, and we'd pump that much gas in the car. That was the gas for the next day. And we did that day after day after day after day. We picked up bottles. We did that for a year. Took the kids to school and coming back, picking up bottles, putting gas in the car. And what we filed on our thing was the money I made. The money that I made over the board. Painting houses. And the Lord showed me how to, in that day, showed me how to mix paint. I had barrels and barrels. I made my own paint, and I put it on the building. I can take you today, show you houses I painted 35, 40 years ago, that the paint still looks good today. Paint the Lord gave me the ability to make. And I'm an uneducated man, but the Lord showed me how to do it, and I did it. I don't know if I could do it again or not, but I could if He showed me how again, because I done got old now and forgot things. But we lived on a meager salary and lived good. By the way, that was the year we planted watermelons. We planted watermelons that year. And my wife and I fought those watermelons. We went out there. We fought that nut grass. It came up, that nut grass did. And it ran over us. We put out, we took paint cans, gallon paint cans, poked holes in the bottom, filled them with rock and sand. Every morning before daylight we got out. And we'd go around with 5-gallon buckets and fill those cans with water. We put cotton seed on those seeds for them watermelon seeds. And we had 5 acres of watermelons out there, doing them by hand. And then that same year we made that little bit of money. And anyway, so we did those watermelons, and we worked and we worked and we worked, and that nut grass took over. We couldn't do anything about it. So I just gave it up. I said, we gave it up. That nut grass was waist high. Couldn't do anything with it. Well, come to find out, that nut grass shaded them watermelons. And them watermelons got to be up to 30, 40-pound watermelons. They were the biggest watermelons you ever seen. Best tasting watermelon anybody ever ate. There was a lot of black folks around us, and black folks love watermelon. And what they did is they told their neighbors and their friends. We had them coming from 40, 50 miles away, 60 miles away to get a watermelon that was grown in cottonseed with no other fertilizer. Hey, and you know what the Lord did? The Lord blessed that watermelon patch. It paid the tuition for the school. It paid listen, my wife and I have never had to file one single penny on the government. We have never had to file a penny for the government. We raised 6 children. We never had any insurance. We didn't have an outstanding hospital bill. We didn't have one outstanding hospital bill. We tithed on every single solitary penny that came into our house, got tithed on the watermelons, on the soda bottles, every single penny came in the house got tithed on. And the Lord gave us more and more and more, and gave us a way to live. And anyway, back to make a long story short, God blessed the watermelon patch above and beyond anything anybody ever saw. How I happened to find the watermelons were ripe is one morning my wife said, hey, you know there's somebody down there in that watermelon patch. We looked down there and there was a little black boy down there. He done knocked one of them watermelons open, and he was just having a time, one of my neighbors. He had found out that watermelon made good. And I was proud of him too, because I said, I never would have known it, son, had you not been down here. And you help yourself to all the watermelons you want. And we cut watermelon at the end of the road down there and gave free watermelon to everybody that wanted a free watermelon, and hoped that they would buy a few too. And they did. So anyway, this is how God has blessed. All right, this is God blessing in this day. In this day and age, now we have some things that I would not brag about, but I would say that God has made us comfortable, even though we have no more pennies than we absolutely need. Not a penny more we absolutely need. But on the other hand, we are not hurting. We are happy-go-lucky folks in that sense of the word. And by the way, a man does not need to see more than he needs for the day. For the Bible said, let the day be for itself. I've lost my control there. But so every day needs to stand for itself and will. Do you know something? I've rattled on here, but I saw my dad do what I've done through my life. I saw my dad do his life with 6 children, and now I've done it, and I've got some children that are doing it. I've got some children right now that are doing the same exact thing. And I'm working for one of my sons right now periodically who is doing the same thing. His business looks like it's big, flourishing business, but you know what? The overhead is bigger than the business sometimes. But God provides. God provides those that give to Him. And they've been taking mission trips this year. They've gone on some $30,000 mission trips this year. Instead of putting the money in his house, He's put the money on the mission field. And the Lord's took care of the house. I got to go. See you later. Bye-bye, Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word.